Welcome to the Misophonia podcast. This is episode 11 of season 6. My name's Adil Ahmad, and I have Misophonia. This week I'm talking to Lynn, a music and entertainment lawyer in New York City. Actually, she's quite multi-talented, as you'll hear. Lynn doesn't have the normal mouth sound triggers that many of us do. Hers are a little more machine-oriented. We also talk about HSP, highly sensitive people, her career as a therapist before going into law, how different cultures react to misophonia and other mental health conditions, as well as our recommendations for quiet kitchen appliances. And I give Lynn some of my instructions on how to eat if and when we have a meal together in New York. As always, let me know what you think. You can reach out by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or hit me up on Instagram or Facebook at misophoniapodcast. By the way, please do head over and leave a quick review or rating wherever you listen to this show. It helps drive us up in the algorithms and reach more misophones. Thanks for the incredible ongoing support of our Patreon supporters, including new supporter Sarah. If you'd like to contribute, you can read all about our different levels at patreon.com/misophoniapodcast. And one of the best ways to get the word out, as I said above, is just to leave a quick rating and review. All right, now here's my conversation with Lynn. Lynn, welcome to the podcast. Good to have you here.
Happy to be here. Nervous. I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, no, don't be nervous. It flies by. You won't even know. I guess, do you want to start by kind of telling people where you are and what you do a little bit?
Yeah. I'm in New York City and I'm an entertainment lawyer. I do music, film, and television agreements, transactional law. I don't go to court. I don't sue people. I'm a non-litigious lawyer, working in the entertainment business.
Cool. Yeah, and I guess, you had reached out earlier this year. I want to say maybe even before the summer. I believe it. I believe you did. I think it's been a while. We've been trying to put this together.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
so how was it, just to kind of listen over the podcast, or was there how's misophonia for you these days? Like, is it
Yeah.
things been breaking out?
Yeah. Breaking out. Is that the term?
I just made that up, actually. So
Okay, good to know.
kind of like a zip breakout. I'm like,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
TM, just TM at the end
exactly.
of it. So, I listened to some of your episodes, and I don't think I have the typical story about misophonia. I just recently discovered that I had it and didn't have a name for it until really recently. So once in a while, when I'm feeling tortured by my triggers, I'll do a little Google search just to learn more. I feel like a baby in terms of, discovering what this is about and how to manage it and, how to avoid certain triggers and so on. So I would say that I'm still in the discovery phase.
Mm-hmm.
And, trying to remember when it started. I have no idea when it started. I don't remember being like this as a kid or even as a young adult. And, but, I have things that annoyed me in life. And then I realized that, wow, I have this thing. So
What made you realize
yeah.
that? It sounds like it was, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was 2018
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so real recent. I used to volunteer for Sundance every year and the festival, and Melanie Linsky, this indie actress.
Yeah. No, she's got misophonia, right? Yeah, she talks about it
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
Well, I was reading this interview because she had done a couple of films, at this particular season of Sundance. And she said, "Oh yeah, I have this thing." And as I Googled it, what is this thing? And she says she suffers from. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have this." It was really surprising. Although I feel like I have a different one than most do.
Mm-hmm.
It comes out in different ways. So that's how I discovered and came into the world of
Mm-hmm.
miso. Do people say miso? Is that
Yeah.
disrespectful? Okay, good.
No.
The misos, yes.
Yeah, just the mesosphere, misophones, misophonic people. I don't
Okay,
think anyone's
good.
really. Actually, it's funny. No one. I don't know if anyone is crazy about the name misophonia because I think it means hatred of sound. It's not like we hate all
Oh,
sounds. It's,
Right.
selective sounds. There used to be a term, sorry for the history lesson, but there used to be a term
Yeah,
called
please.
selective sound sensitivity syndrome, which is more accurate but way less catchy. And
Right.
so it kind of you kind of went to misophonia around. Basically, it was in a New York Times article in 2011, and the name I think just kind of stuck since then. Misophonia.
Well, I do hate some sounds. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I like miso.
That's why we're here. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, miso's catchy, but also
Yeah,
it's got the soup connotation as
for
well,
sure. The
which I
soup, the
guess is
sauce, love it.
yeah, yeah.
Dressing.
But I guess so that sounds okay. So yeah, Melanie kind of tipped you off, and did so so I guess what are some of your, without making obviously making the trigger sounds? So what are some of the things that what makes it different for you then in
Yes,
terms of what triggers it?
let me play all my trigger sounds. So, I they're mostly machine or man-made sounds. So,
I'm guessing a leaf blower is
refrigerators,
gonna come
leaf
into
oh my gosh, I get homicidal when I'm somewhere where
mm,
there's loud leaf blower, the pool heaters, generators, those kinds of things. I just even really loud ACs. That drives me nuts. Fans I don't enjoy. And then there's some strange ones, bad music. So music that I don't enjoy becomes a trigger. Which maybe is just, even if I didn't have miso, I would feel that, but
yeah,
it feels more hateful
like an
than, or more,
intrusion and yeah.
yeah, it feels more hostile than other people who might listen to a song that they don't enjoy. So, that there's that. And, when I'm commercials, either on the radio, on television, that those drive me nuts. A lot of just unwanted sounds, and even music if I love it, but even if it's a music I love, but I'm not in the mood for it, it becomes a
Mm.
little bit triggering as well. So I'm just very aware of sounds. And if I'm having lunch with somebody in a restaurant and the speaker or the music that they're playing is loud, or if the speaker is bad and you can hear that humming, or
Mm.
a bad speaker, or all of that, I can't even listen to the conversation that I'm having in the
Just
restaurant,
fixated
because
on it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just like, that sound, that sound, that sound, that sound. Went into
yeah,
the
yeah.
hardware store the other day, and even just to run in and out getting a nail, they were playing radios, commercial radios, so you were hearing the commercials, and then one of the speakers in the back of the hardware store was busted, so it's just like this very buzzing sound, and I was like,
Yeah,
I gotta get out of here. So
yeah.
that's kind of the scope of my. I don't have the chewing,
Yeah, you don't have the chewing.
one.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
So at that
no.
restaurant with your friend with the speaker causing problems, that person's chewing or is not an issue
No,
or
not at
less.
all. Yeah,
What about
not even
visual triggers?
remotely.
Do any visual triggers accompany any of these not as, not usual triggers of yours? Like if you
What other people have as visual
So visual
triggers?
triggers, it's they usually accompany the more mouth sound misophonia. So it would be like if they're seeing somebody, um, chewing something, or maybe they're sometimes it's like fidgeting if they're seeing some,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
unwanted repetitive foot rotation, or just sometimes it's also like touch, like it's you kind of the classic kind of like kicking the back of your seat on an airplane, but other things. So sometimes
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, now that you're saying that, and again, I feel like I'm still new to all this. So yes, I'm very conscious of people are fidgeting, and
yeah,
I do not to the level of the sounds, but it does irritate me. Yes, I'm really conscious of the person who's sitting behind me or in front of me in a plane, to the point where it can ruin my flight. And so yeah, I guess there is some hypervigilance that go beyond the sounds now that you mention it, but I never really thought about that. But yeah.
yeah. There's a school of thought, and this might be a digression, but I was talking to someone
Mhm.
about this yesterday, where like the sound sensitivities might just stick out because I was thinking about it, and it's, like hearing is maybe the most difficult of our five senses to avoid, because we can close our eyes to avoid seeing something. We can obviously not touch something, or not taste or smell something, but like hearing, like you really need to be to have
Mhm.
noise canceling headphones on to avoid a sound that could be associated with something that's uncomfortable for you. So maybe it's misophonia just happens to be an obvious symptom of a more
It's
holistic
more
issue.
pronounced.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But anyway, so how do you so we I guess maybe like what are some of your coping mechanisms
I don't
with what
know.
you
I
do
think
other
maybe
than
you can give me
phoning
some.
in your story? Yeah. Yeah.
Again, I'm just discovering. I think that, and I was thinking about coming here to for this interview and thinking about, well, what is my coping
Yeah.
mechanisms? And I think that um, there has been a little bit of a shift, or trying to be more conscious of a shift between trying to control the environment and trying to stop the people, places, and things that are causing that noise and my
Hmm.
discomfort, to monitoring my own actions and responses. So I think that that's shifting a little bit. For instance, I lived in this apartment. I'm in New York now, but I lived in LA, and I lived in this, love this apartment, but right underneath me, and I could picture it now, that where this one neighbor had a really noisy, rattly air conditioning unit that I heard when it turned on every single time, and the second it shut off, I was like, ah, and it was constant. Unless I was playing loud music or TV, I was always very conscious of how that turned on and off. And then at the same place, there was three doors down, there was a pool heater again that I could always hear when it came on, and always find some relief when it turned off. And I was, writing letters to these neighbors, putting them in
Mm.
the mailbox. And the air conditioned place happened to be, no, the pool heater place happened to be for sale. So the owners weren't even living there. So having these like letter writing campaigns, and at
Yeah.
first people giving me hope that they would address it, but then they didn't. And so, having, mounting, kind of campaigns to try to get these people to fix. And by the way, I wish they had anyway, besides how sensitive I
Right.
am. But regardless, it would have been nice. I don't know how they all handled the sound, but obviously we know that now if they're not as sensitive to it. But now, realizing, I'm here in New York City, and I know exactly what air conditions are coming on and off. I mean, it happens to me here too, but for whatever reason, I'm just finding ways to block it out, or, put music, put headphones on, kind of trying to modulate my own blocking out, as opposed to, being subject to the noise without any ability to kind of, allowing the sound to control me versus trying to control the sound in some way.
Right. So not expecting other people to be able to turn things off, but rather
Well,
you
I'm still
you
trying to
take
do
as
that a
much.
little.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's I mean not expecting that. Not expecting
Yes,
it
but
might always
exactly.
happen.
But
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 yeah.
I would literally, I mean, this is New York City, and I live, my apartment is in the back, so it's really open, it's a lot of backs to buildings is where I'm, it's like Rear Window. Do you know that
Yeah. Oh
movie?
yeah.
So
Love that movie.
yeah, right, exactly. So, I would have to write a whole lot of letters to get all the various heaters and air conditioner. Heaters
It's a
is
lot
not a
of echoing.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But, I hear all of them going on. But heaters is not a problem because you close all your windows. And in New York, the windows are
Right.
quite thick. So it's just really my heaters that you hear, and I'm not hearing everybody else's. But, up until now, all my windows have been open, and I'm hearing every air conditioning unit as it goes on and off throughout the summer.
I would think that the air conditioning you'd want to close the windows too, but maybe some people have them windows open, some people
Well,
have air
yeah,
conditioners. I
I'm
guess
only
it's a
using
mix.
air conditioner in the
Yeah.
really, when it's really,
Yeah.
really hot. Most of the time I have a lot of cross ventilation here, so it's only about a month that I need AC and closed windows. Otherwise, my windows are open and there's a lot of
Hmm.
fresh air here.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yes, if I loved AC and I loved that, it would be less problematic for sure.
How is New York otherwise? I would imagine there's all kinds of strange noises, but also there is a general white noise, and people are just always moving, so it's not like you're necessarily trapped in one
It's
place. I guess all
true.
the time. I don't know.
I think that, my sensitivities are selective. Car horns don't bother, there's certain things that don't bother me, and there's certain things that bother me. The white noise bothers me sometimes. I live on the park and on the river on the west side,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a quieter neighborhood. And again, I'm in the back, so we don't have a lot of traffic sound here. But yeah, it does bother me. I do, before I realized I had misophonia, I always, once a year, I would go to Thailand, Cambodia, somewhere in Southeast Asia, and I would always find the most isolated beach, with, the most isolated islands with no roads, no cars, no electricity, just super, super quiet. And like the amount of peacefulness that I experienced and calmness in my body was really, so here I am in the noisiest, most crowded
Mm-hmm. Oh
city,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So once in a while, I do wish to be, taking away to a quiet beach where all I hear is the sound of the surf. It's my special
And
place.
does that help? Like sometimes, just having that having that hope that you can just kind of get away once a year sometimes helps. Do you find that kind of I don't know, can kind of help
Calm me
calm you
down.
down during the maybe the tough times when there's the ACs of all different frequencies going off?
Not really,
No,
because
okay.
no, because then I'm
Yeah,
just like, why aren't I there? Why am I here? What did
yeah,
I
yeah,
do?
yeah,
Did I make some wrong life choices to be here? But and also going away for a week, a year is not the goal. The life goal here. It's to spend long periods of time, at these places is the
yeah,
goal.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And what about so since you found out about it in 2018, like, do you tell people, friends, or is it something that you're still kind of learning about and just trying to cope with on your own?
I don't tell people. And as a matter of fact, I told my boss that I wasn't going to be available today. And yeah, and I was like, I don't know why. I was like, yeah, I have an interview. So what's the interview? I was like, I was like, well, do you know what misophonia is? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I have it. I'm giving an interview. Okay, bye. And so, I think that's the first person I've really told. Maybe my
Yeah,
brother or maybe a friend,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
I don't tell people. Um, and I hope that this doesn't sound, but I still haven't explored, am I ashamed of it, or do I feel like a pain in the ass, or
That's
I'm
something
not
that a lot
really
of us feel.
sure.
Yeah, it would be a lot of us don't.
Yeah.
A lot of us definitely know we had it, and definitely know we had it from an early age, but we just bottled it up before and after because, yeah, I mean, a lot of us are just piled on. We have so much shame and guilt from an early
Yeah.
age that
Yeah.
it's
Which is,
interesting to hear your
yeah.
perspective, somebody who's just found out about it recently. So,
Yeah, it's a, it feels very personal for sure. But yeah, I guess that, and I don't know. Yeah, I need to maybe tell more people. Maybe this is the way.
yeah,
Maybe this is
yeah,
my outing, my,
right.
my outing party.
So, yeah, and what about like your family growing up? You said you noticed some annoyances. Did you maybe were there any things that you incidents that you remember, or and another question is going to be like, do you know anyone else who had it maybe in your family um, when you were growing up?
I no, I don't
Mm.
remember anybody I know having it. I knew. I don't remember incidents. I know that I was sensitive, like emotionally sensitive, and I was
Yeah.
I do know that, but I don't remember it being related to sounds or scents, or I have a couple of scent sensitivities now, which I never
Mm.
did also. So I don't know if that's related, or I kind of looked a little bit and I didn't see a lot of um, information about scent misophonia, but I imagine there could be.
Yeah, no, it's come up of like I guess well, a phylactery or whatever, but it's come up once or twice as whenever I talk to people about musokinesia, which is the visual triggers. Some people mention other senses that they're sensitive about, like touch or sometimes smell. Um,
Yeah.
and would you say that another term that's come up a lot on the show is kind of like the highly sensitive person, the HSP, like the being an ultra empathic person? Do you did you said you were kind of sensitive? Did you notice any traits like that growing up, where you just kind of
Very
like,
much.
yeah,
Yeah, very much. No, I've always been intuitive, and sensitive, and many times that you're too sensitive. You're too sensitive. Grew up with that
Mm.
notion. I was also very emotional, and before, years of therapy, didn't know how to contain my emotions and
Yeah.
handle, so I do feel maybe these things are connected in some ways. I was also, before I was a lawyer, I was a therapist, so you know
Oh,
that was a natural place to be empathic for sure, and sensitivity became a gift, and an asset, as opposed to a burden, or an
yeah.
annoyance. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something that overlaps a lot. The HSP, highly sensitive person trait, and misophonia. Um, and yeah, when I heard about that, I was thinking back as well, and I was like, it started to make
Yeah.
a lot of sense for me as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and thankfully, I mean, I'm older now, and I feel, it's very hard to, I'm not triggered emotionally a lot, and I'm not super sensitive. It's very hard to offend me, and I have confidence in who I am, and people saying something to me doesn't throw me off. So I feel that that's shifted a lot, which is nice, because I mean, some of these things we're talking about are quite burdensome, when I'm really triggered by the sounds. I have a refrigerator, and when I go into a when I go into a hotel room, I'll immediately unplug the mini fridge,
oh
but
yeah,
like
yeah,
this is a psychotic thing, because like sometimes the plug is in a very inconvenient place, and I am moving furniture,
yeah.
and I am crawling under disgusting, I am,
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
and then a lot of places, like, you're basically defrosting the refrigerator for you, especially if you're in a
Right.
tropical place. I spent a month, 2 months in Costa Rica last year, and I was unplugging refrigerators all over the place and flooding the hotel room, because you're basically,
Yeah.
there are some very strange habits that come of it, but I can't sleep in a room with a little mini fridge that's buzzing like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's having a fridge in your bedroom. I mean, it is having a fridge in your bedroom,
Yes. And having a
which is
studio
tough.
apartment, I had to, I'm looking in New York. New
Oh,
York is
yeah.
very expensive. I moved here in March, and but I had to have a one bedroom, because I cannot sleep in a one room with
Mhm,
my refrigerator.
mhm, mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So then, okay, so you were maybe, I'm curious about the when you were a therapist, what kind of therapist were you? Or just general, for example, or general
Yeah,
family?
yeah, so right, in California, there's a marriage family therapist, an MFT program.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I was really, you have to get 3,000 hours as an intern to be
Right.
licensed. And I was about 100 hours away before I went to law school. So I never ended
Oh,
up getting
okay,
licensed.
okay,
But I
okay.
got my master's degree in clinical psych. And then I worked for a couple of years, two or three, I think. After school, I did general adult work,
Mhm.
and then I specialized in eating disorders.
Mm, okay.
Yes, bulimia and anorexia.
Gotcha. And,
Yes.
was that something you wanted to do for a long time
Mm,
before you did that, or was it
no,
yeah.
no. I mean, I was an actor for a long time, and I needed a break. And I was in therapy myself, as I mentioned, and I really liked the conversation that I was having. I had a great therapist, and she was an incredible mentor, and this beautiful older woman that I inspired and aspired to be. And I just really thought the conversations were important and meaningful. And I
Mhm.
felt that she had brought me from point A to point B in a really helpful and organic way. And I thought, wow, I've been on that journey. I should help other people on that journey. And then I did end up mentoring, through my practice, younger women who were also trying to, come to a place of healing and
Mhm.
integration. And so yeah, that was, it was sort of like, oh, you go on an incredible trip, and then you want to help other people. I actually do that because I travel a lot, and I'm always making travel guides for people when they go to places I've been, because why not? It's very helpful if you've been there before. So,
Right.
similar analogy.
It's interesting, and so this whole, the whole portion of your career where you were a therapist, it didn't, the sound sensitivities did not occur to you at all, like, or maybe it just wasn't, it was normalized for you, maybe. But it never occurred to you that that misophonia might be a thing,
No,
or
but
that,
when you mentioned
yeah.
the fidgeting, there were, what came up for me was that I remember there were, clients who had a lot of fidgety, leg
Mm,
movements and arm movements, and I would try to stop them, not realizing, thinking I was helping them control their anxiety. But now when you say that, I'm like,
interesting.
wow, I might have been helping control my own anxiety about
Yeah,
it. So,
yeah,
that does have raised food for thought.
yeah. And did anything from your therapy career kind of has any of that kind of helped you manage your misophonia now that you know what it is, and um can kind of try to
Doctor,
uh,
heal thyself. Is that what you
yeah,
meant? Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
I
Or
think
it's totally
that,
be, I mean, a
yeah,
lot of therapists have not even heard of it, so there isn't really a playbook. But
yeah. I also remembered, maybe this, now that I think of it, there, maybe 15, actually there are two stories. Yes. Now that I'm thinking about the earlier versions, what I
hmm,
remember, but still adulthood. But my one of my therapists had a ticking clock, and that's also a really problematic
yeah.
sound for me, the tick tick tick. And which I always thought was an existential trigger, until I realized no, it's probably misophonia too. But um and I couldn't concentrate on the session unless he put away the clock, and so it would come before a session, he would put it in a drawer so I wouldn't have to hear it.
Uh-huh.
And I felt like, oh, I'm so weird. And he didn't he said that no other client had ever asked him to do that. And whenever I'd be in a room, when I'd go to Thailand and there'd be a ticking clock in the massage room, when I was supposed to be getting
Oh,
undressed,
it's
I
a
would
terrible
hide.
place for one. Yeah.
I know, and I would hide the clock, in some room somewhere. It was, I was the crazy Farangs,
Hmm.
foreigner, trying to hide a clock, or pulling out the battery. Again, that's part of
Hmm.
the unplugging refrigerators, just trying to manage the sound so I could have some peace. But one time I was at my sister's. She had just gotten married, and I spent the night in the guest room, and there was a ticking clock in there, and I put the ticking clock in a drawer, in the filing cabinet, and then never thought about it. And I guess 2 3 months later, my sister called me. She's like, I don't know how to ask you this, but did you steal our clock? And I was like,
And you
what?
should
The
say,
clock?
yes, you
It
caught
was
me.
like,
No, I'm kidding.
I was like, months later, I was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh my gosh, that clock. Yes, it's in the drawer. And she opened it and she found it. I'm like, you waited months to ask me if I've stole that clock? She's like, we thought you stole it. We didn't know how to tell you. Yeah, it was this ridiculous thing. So just, it's very dangerous, this misophonia.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But I don't know if I answered your question. I forget the original
I don't
question.
even remember the question, but it was you talking about clocks. That reminds me, like I was taking
Yes.
piano lessons not long ago, and there was like a ticking clock in the room, and
Metronome.
I could
Oh,
not. I could well, it was interfering with my timing because because it sounded like a metronome, and so anytime I tried to play music, I just could not keep time. So
I feel you.
until
I
I
feel
smothered it
you.
under a giant winter jacket. So
Feel you.
yeah,
Yes. And then to me, the second part about having this is also being incredulous that other people are not as triggered and annoyed by that. When we're somewhere and it's so loud, I'm like, I can't even hear you. I'm like, doesn't it bother you? Like, what? No, I don't notice it. I'm like, what's wrong with you? You don't
yeah,
notice it.
definitely especially that's definitely especially a problem before you know what it is, and then you're like, oh, okay, I'm different.
Yes, I know. But even though I
Which
know I'm different, I
yeah, I
still,
was gonna say it doesn't necessarily help, but at least it's the one data point.
yeah.
Um,
I think
so
I remember your
yeah,
question.
go on.
Sorry, go ahead. Your question was, as a therapist, can I help myself? And
Oh yeah.
yeah, and I just think that, well, look, as you get older, I hope that we all, no matter what we're dealing with, that we have some more compassion for ourselves, and that whatever our hangups or neuroses are, and we all have them, that we can be kind to ourselves, and we'll never have other people accept them if we don't accept them for ourselves. So
Hmm.
I tried to practice that, and this is just yet another one that I could feel real down about, or I can just say, yep, that's just my thing, and love me or leave me. That's what I'm dealing with here. So
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, yeah, self compassion is something I've been trying to promote more, just in general, but also it's come up in some thoughts of therapy where a lot of folks come on and may have had some tough childhoods or some chaotic
Mhm.
childhoods, and there's just a kind of a maybe like a kind of a wounded self that's inside that has not been healed, and so there's an idea of just trying to talk to that child and just give it some compassion as a way to heal. I mean, that could apply to much more than just misophonia, but
For sure. Are you talking
it's
about yourself, or you're talking about others, or both?
oh no, others in general, yeah,
Okay.
and yeah, for myself to some degree, there's a lot of a lot of folks have maybe had you know parents with anger issues or parents who are maybe alcoholics, or maybe there have been some other debts in the family that were tough, but these are all different things I've heard, and that always often correlate with some sensitivity to sound, and so
Mm.
self-compassion is a way to kind of heal the child who was not supported growing up. um,
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that in some of the interviews for certain, that there is connection to the trauma of childhood to the
mhm.
adult dealing of the sounds. I heard that a few times on your
And it can come out
podcast.
obviously in different ways, not just misophonia, but
Sure.
yeah, it's
Yeah. Look, we can't help what happened to us, but we can certainly control what we do with all of that. And, we have choices whether we want to work on ourselves or not. You know, let those traumas, impact us and give, give us negative experiences as an adult, or we can learn to heal those parts. We have
right.
lots of choice.
Yep. Yeah, and the interesting thing there is where I start to think that sound, sound is kind of a link to that past. Is there's a lot of when there's a lot of chaos early on, there's a lot of walking on eggshells. So I feel like potentially one way misophonia can get develop or amplify is if there was a lot of um, walking on eggshells at some point in one's life, especially early on. Trying not to set off some volatile
Mm.
situation.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
switching gears, I wanted to talk about. I guess you've had music is at least at some point, or acting. It sounds like it was a part of your life at some point. I think
Yeah.
music as well. We talked about over email. So has music and music has always has been a big part of my life, and a lot of folks coming on. A lot of us are very creative.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that has been a source of comfort, healing, whatever for you? I'm just curious, general, like what you do, first of all, and then
Yeah,
how it
well,
kind of like helps you.
yeah. Well, I've always been obsessed with music, and I worked at a radio station in high school, and did a radio show in college. I'm a singer, and I'm getting back into singing right now, musical theater, and then also I'm in the music business, so I have
Yeah,
clients who I represent, artists, composers, bands, singer songwriters, and I also see tons of music a few times a week generally. And so, yes, and I'm always listening to music. I make playlists all the time on Spotify. I'm a music junkie
oh, I
for
need to follow
sure.
you then. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, please do. Yeah, I make a lot of playlists. My friends are like, too many playlists. I'm like, okay, because every excuse me, every season I make a new list, and it basically
Yeah,
becomes a repository for new music, and then
yeah.
music that I'm from the past that I just want to keep listening to again and again. So,
Do you have anything
um,
that helps particular, like air conditioner hell kind of playlist on
yeah,
Spotify, or
yeah, it's yes. So that see, up until recently I've been I don't like to live my life with headphones in my ears, and that's
mm-hmm.
if I'm in a noisy place, it's really challenging for me to, or it has been, but I'm trying to shift that now. And now I put on music, you know and then I tried to shake my head so I can get, if there's a repetitive noise that's bothering me. It takes a while, even with the music off, to not hear it. But once you shift or leave the room and come back, you don't hear it. So I think that music tends to be, I mean, it depends on my mood, but what's been helping most of all is quiet classical, a quiet piano,
Yeah.
something really, because I'm very stimulated by lyrics and music that I know, so that doesn't calm me all the time. I
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, so I classical, quiet classical seems to be helping me a lot
Yeah, I
lately.
was thinking about that recently. Like, I've listened to music all my life while working, but I feel like there's so many times when I catch myself kind of like being so distracted and being so into a song that it maybe doesn't help my productivity as much.
Yeah,
But yeah, quite
100%.
classical is great. But I'm also very, very into like, 20th century John Cage stuff, which is, or, kind of get, also kind of distracting in some ways.
Well,
But maybe I should.
hey, I would love to hear your miso playlist.
Yeah, I actually do have a miso. I did one a while back. Partly, I did one where I actually made it collaborative, so people can add their favorite I don't know, their favorite tracks that kind of help them feel better. But
On
I
the
think
on the on the on the app?
yeah,
I think I saw some
oh
mention of
yeah,
that.
yeah, no, well that's different. Yeah, no, I also have a, so yeah, I can kind of the Miss Funny app is kind of a yeah, it's an app for just this podcast, but it also has a tab where you can I have like, brown noise, white noise, pink noise, like
Yeah,
nature
yeah, I
noise
saw
and stuff
that.
like that.
Um,
So that's super helpful. Yeah, I'll link to that. But
yeah, that's a great idea.
it's so that's nice. But also now, I mean, I don't know if you have an iPhone, but this, I mean, since I did that app, like so the iPhone has a built-in feature where you can turn on a background noise, which will go over everything you're doing. Like you're on a phone call, anything you're doing. It'll play in the background, even on top of like music that you're listening to, which obviously you wouldn't necessarily want to do. But
Right.
that's kind of a nice because I mean, to your point, we don't necessarily want to be in headphones all the time, but it's nice to. I have my phone set up so if I hit the like if I even tap the back like three times, it'll turn on white noise, which is cool because
Hmm.
if I'm in an emergency,
Yes.
I don't want to be fumbling for how do I turn on that setting, but I can just
Yes.
hit a button. If I can hit a button three times and have white noise in my ears, that's pretty sweet, and I can
Yes,
turn it off
I
just as
double
easily
tap.
too.
You're talking about the
Mhm.
back of your phone. Yeah, I do the double
Yeah.
tap for the camera. I think it's
Yes.
double, but you're
Yes.
saying it's triple. Is it
You can,
triple?
well, yeah. You can set a it's all programmable, so you can set different buttons to do different things on a triple tap or yeah.
Right.
Um,
Okay. What kind of miso do you have? What are your
oh,
triggers?
mine's pretty traditional. It's pretty traditional, like chewing, coughing, throat clearing. Um, yeah, that kind of basically like mouth noise, throat related stuff.
Hmm.
And that goes back to, and it's pretty traditional onset, around whatever, like around puberty, parents being the first ones, thinking that yeah, I was just, and me thinking I was just being, being kind of a teenager kind of thing, but
Hmm.
not realizing till much later that, oh, this is far more than that.
And were they
So
sensitive to it? Did you share that with them or?
no, no, as to this
Okay.
day. Yeah,
Oh,
which is yes,
to this
which
day,
is yeah, yeah,
they
that's
don't know that you do this podcast?
no, no, no. Yeah. I
Interesting.
was almost gonna break it earlier this year, and it's just complicated. It's yeah, it's there there's, well, like going back to what I said earlier. I mean, there's just a lot of that. There's just years of like the decades actually now, I guess, of that, the shame and the guilt, and is it worth it at this point? I mean, only one of my parents is actually even living right now, so it's like worth it at this point. There's
Would they care
also
at this point? Would they be so shocked and
I'm pretty sure. Well,
oh,
no, they would definitely, yeah, they would definitely care. But then it'll get rolled in, as it did for another guest earlier. I'm sure it'll get rolled into some kind of um, religious conversation. So it's like, do I want to
mm,
deal with that?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So I mean,
mm.
I honestly, I probably should, but it's one of those easier said than done kind of conversations.
it's just interesting because not only do you have it, but you spend quite a lot of time
Yes,
in the
yes,
community, and this is
yes,
your podcast. So,
yes.
it's a big part of what you do beyond that you
Indeed,
experience. Yeah.
indeed, yeah.
So I
And there's more I
support.
want to do. I mean, I want to. I mean, like
Yeah.
I don't know, we talked about briefly. I mean, I'm trying to work on music related to misophonia, so I want to be even more involved. So, at some
Yeah.
point it'll come out. I mean, at some point I'm
Yeah.
sure it'll come out because I'm kind of doubling down, tripling down on this
Yeah, for
because it's
sure.
this is not- this is for me. It's not just which I think a lot of us realize. It's not just an annoyance to sound. There are all these different layers and dimensions and repercussions on relationships, as we're just talking about right now. That um, it's yeah, I don't know. It's deep, unexplored landscape of uh, humanity. I feel
Yeah.
so.
And I imagine also, I don't know what your background is, ethnic wise, or, you mentioned religion, but I'm assuming that there's some differences there too for how,
Hmm. Hmm.
what is your background? I'm
Oh,
interested.
yeah. No, so yeah. Well, ethnic background is like in Indian and Pakistani, so half and half.
Okay, gotcha.
Those
Are you
two,
a
which
first
are
generation
similar
or?
enough. Yeah. My
Okay,
parents. Yeah, I was born in Canada, and but my parents
okay.
immigrated in the '60s. So,
Say that's
um,
my story. I'm also first generation. My parents
mm,
immigrated in the 60s as well.
yeah, that was a big time to get away from wherever wherever our parents were. I
Wherever they
guess
were, exactly.
this is yeah
Yeah.
the I guess the fun '60s over here, the hippies. They weren't exactly hippies, but
Yeah, my parents are
yeah, a lot of
definitely,
people.
but I'm just thinking about, in terms of other people, other listeners who might not want to share with their families, that not
Hmm.
only because of their own, you know, shame or fears, but there are cultural that my parents, are, from Israel. They're both born in Poland. They're,
Yeah,
I consider them Holocaust survivors, and, there wasn't a lot of patience for all kinds of
right,
things, which would be including like this thing they've never heard of that they wouldn't be very, understanding of, or, just get over it kind of a mentality.
right.
So,
When you put misophonia against the Holocaust, I would definitely take misophonia. Um,
do we
Definitely,
have to choose? Do we have to
yeah.
choose? But if we do, we have to choose which is worse.
Sometimes
Okay,
the
it would be the
decision
Holocaust.
feels tough, but no, yeah, I
The
would happily.
Holocaust is probably worse than misophonia, but
Hmm.
yes, when I'm having a real trigger, I should just think, thank goodness I'm, not in a
Right,
concentration camp, and that should help.
right.
This is a really, really fun conversation to compare miso to a
Yeah, I think this
concentration
is the
camp.
first time anyone's compared that. I'm sure
I'm
somebody
not,
listening
I'm
is
not-
like having a maybe a more difficult time comparing them, or
yes, for sure.
maybe we'll
Well,
have an opposite opinion. I don't know, but
yes, yes,
yeah,
yes. Um, but not to make light of that, of course.
right,
But
right, right, right.
and I think
Um,
that, in terms of, I do tend to. I think that humor and making light of things without denying, your experience is helpful for me, at least. That, not to take things so seriously, and, we're here for just a limited amount of time, and we're all doing our best, and I sure am trying, and so not to take yourself too seriously.
Humor is a great coping mechanism that comes up a lot.
Mhm.
Just if we sometimes if we can, if somebody's triggering you, they don't have misophonia, but if a tasteful joke can be made to kind of lighten the situation. A lot of the times, it somehow tells our brain that okay, this is not a threatening situation. So,
Yeah.
um, obviously, in for the folks who are triggered by other people, maybe not.
Yes.
It's probably hard to joke with an air conditioner, but definitely
Oh,
that
I
can kind
have.
of help.
Oh, I do.
And what about actually that reminded me like a lot of us have, I mean, you don't have to tell us, but like comorbid conditions, maybe I don't know, other like OCDs or anxiety, like have there been other things that kind of maybe overlap with misophonia a little bit in your life?
Sorry, I swallowed, everybody. I'm so sorry. Swallow some
I
water.
didn't even notice, but
good.
I'll
Okay.
cut it out if I hear it when doing editing.
No, I'm so conscious right now of every sound I make. I'm trying to sit very still and not swallow or breathe.
Yeah.
Um, I don't, nothing comes to
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
When, the DSM-4,
Mm-hmm.
it's the book of all the,
The psychiatry codes or
yeah,
psychology codes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it basically represents all the conditions, so all the psychological
Yeah.
conditions. And the first day of psych school, our professor said, we all have everything to a smaller less, to a small large degree. It's just, what makes it problematic is it becomes, impedes your ability to work or play or have relationships. Like when it interferes in, your life, that's when it becomes problematic. But we all have a little
Yeah.
OCD. We all have a little depression. We all have a little bit of that. That's part of the human condition. And I hope we have all the varying things, because that's what makes us whole
Yeah.
functioning humans. But I wouldn't say that I have, I have moments of things, but no, I wouldn't say I mean, sometimes my contracts, I get a little bit, because I write contracts, and I get a little bit OCD about formatting,
Yeah.
much to my coworkers' chagrin. But no, I wouldn't think that I do. This is the big piece for me, I think.
Have you you get you see, I guess, a lot of clients in your various careers, or even in your musical career. Have you met anyone else who has misophonia? Do you know?
No,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Not
no,
unusual. Yeah.
yeah,
Because I
no,
mean, most of us don't even know what it is and until later. So,
yeah,
but I'm curious. Yeah.
yeah, no, no, I haven't. But now maybe it's, remember Pee-wee's Great Adventure, when
Yeah.
somebody stole his bicycle, and then everywhere he looked, he saw bicycles. So I think once you start, have awareness of something, you'll see it a lot more.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah. Well, I guess we're getting close to an hour of
Is it
45 minutes.
really?
It,
Look at
it just
that.
flies by, even
It
though I've
really
done it
does.
a million times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess anything else you want to share about I don't know what you've learned in the last 4 years or so.
My fridge just turned on, so I'm like, what? What did you
Okay.
say? What did you say?
If we hear a big hammer hitting metal or plastic or
So
something, we'll
when
know
I
what
was in
that is.
LA, I spent a lot of time researching really quiet fridges, but I was also quite far from the fridge, and I found a really quiet one. But something happened in the move from the fridge from LA to New
Mm,
York, and now it's louder than usual. So I'm having to make a life decision about, do I get a new fridge? Do I get a fridge guy in here to just see if they can quiet it a little bit more, or and of course, every fridge person would say this is normal. And so I would have to find
right.
a really sensitive fridge guy, or a woman, or a person.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, what did you say?
Sensitivefridgeguy.com. I don't know I don't know what I said, but now I'm curious. What was the fridge that you found that was quiet? Do you
Oh, yeah,
remember?
what brand is it? Let's see. I got it at, what are those big stores, chain stores? Lowe's. I got it at Lowe's. It's a Whirlpool. Yes, it's quite. And I bought one, and then it was really loud, and then they exchanged it, and that version was quiet. So the one that I got it was the same exact brand, but it was off.
Yeah. What was
So
the brand again? I think it was hard to hear.
Whirlpool. It was
Whirlpool.
Whirlpool,
Okay.
but
Whirlpool.
I'm not sure. I can find out the exact
Yeah.
if people want to know.
The people,
Um,
I think, will wonder. And I recently just got a fridge, but we are remodeling our kitchen, and I researched microwaves. There's one
oh,
soft close microwave, supposedly by
oh,
Breville, kind of reduces the
oh,
sound by at least 80% when you close the door. So
oh. Does that
that would
sound
be
bother you?
huge. Oh yeah, 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 for
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
There's something about, I mean, air conditions bother me, but when I'm
Mm-hmm.
sweating my butt off and I turn my AC off, it doesn't bother me that much, because I know
Mm,
that it's really giving me something that I truly need.
yeah.
So, like a microwave, because it's short term, that I know, my kettle going, like I'm getting the thing that I need from it. So it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
bother me. But if somebody else was doing it, I'd be like, when is that? Can you please stop microwaving that?
Yeah. So, oh shoot,
So,
that makes me want to ask. So, a lot of us when we when we get triggered by a person, then we get pretty dark thoughts about what we
Yes.
maybe want to do with the person. When you're
Yeah.
triggered more by inanimate objects, do you blame the object or do you blame the
Oh,
person or blame the
no, the
manufacturer?
person, the
Yeah, okay.
humans.
Yeah.
Yes, the people who think that it's okay to have a rattly,
Mm-hmm.
junky air conditioner on top of their roof that they don't listen to, but we're all, because there are
Right.
a lot of apartments right over it. Oh, yes. No, I totally blame humans for
Gotcha,
that and
gotcha.
many things.
Okay. On that we have common ground.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure. I
gotcha.
mean, I don't love it's usually the humans for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But that's interesting. I needed a tea kettle and an electric tea kettle because I
Mm,
make a lot of tea, and I think I went through five or six before I just ended up using the one that was at my mother's apartment because I couldn't find one that didn't beep. Beep,
mm.
beep, beep, beep. And I was like,
Oh,
what?
yeah.
I needed a quiet, when it boiled, it beeped. And when you wanted to press it, it beeped. And that was kind of a whole journey for me too.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't share with people because you just seem like a crazy person. But yes, I look at my Amazon history sometimes and I see six kettles that were returned, or maybe it was three. I'm exaggerating,
I just
but
have a cheap
what's
ass
sorry?
Amazon Basics
Yes, but does it beep?
kettle. No, it doesn't mean it does. It
Okay,
just clicks when it kind of
okay.
deactivates the boiling.
Good.
So,
That's the perfect. By the way, the Sub Zeros, if you can afford them, are really the ones to get if you're remodeling.
oh, for
Those,
fridges, yeah, yeah,
yes, those are
yeah,
super quiet. Well, this is fun talking about
yeah,
miso on my Friday afternoon.
yeah. No, it's great. I mean, especially since it sounds like you don't know anybody who has it, and it's
No, I'm all the
something that
way
you don't
alone
really
in my
bring
little
up.
miso world.
Yeah, but it's great, and you're not the only one. A lot of people have come on who even have known about it much longer, and they're like, "This is the first time I've talked about it with anybody," and so it's always
Same.
an honor.
Well,
And
it was really interesting to discover you and this podcast and starting to listen to it's like, wow, it's a whole community that I didn't know about and that I
it's quite a
feel,
community. Yeah,
yes, and I feel it does feel some sense of, wow, I feel seen and understood. It's really
and
helpful. Thank you for doing
actually,
this.
no, of course. And I was going to say, now that you're in New York, I mean, I've had a few people on in the in the New York area. A couple of them are singers, musical theater actors,
Mm.
photographers. If you go, I mean, I can obviously shoot you an email, but Chloe and uh, yeah, there's Christina's photographer. There's a bunch of people that
I would love to meet
you might
folks.
go.
Where are
Yeah.
you?
Oh, I'm in Minnesota.
Okay.
Just a
Oh,
member of
what part?
half a country in St. Paul. In St. Paul,
Oh, okay.
which
Because
is
I
yeah.
worked at NPR for a while.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was their lawyer for a couple of years ago. I did Live from Here.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Do you know
cool.
that show?
Live from here? No, I
It
don't.
used to be, it used to be, you know it. Hold on, please hold. It's called, come on, Garrison Keeler.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
American Prairie Home Companion.
Yeah, Brio-
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
after Garrison left, it became Live from Here. So
Yeah.
so I did a lot of work with Minnesota. I love Minneapolis. And
No, it's great. Yeah,
there's a lot.
I think I live near his the bookstore that he started. Like it's in St. Paul on Snelling
Oh,
Avenue. So
yeah. I love
I know
that.
it's
Is that where you're
frequented
from?
also.
No, you said you're from Canada.
No. I'm from Canada, yeah.
Yeah.
But then I was in San Francisco for quite a while, so I'm sure I was in. I don't know if you were in LA for a while. Maybe we crossed highways at some point.
And I lived in
But
San Francisco too. So
oh, you did? Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I was
yeah.
there from '01 to 16. So
Yeah, I was there from '02 to '05.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I went to law school there.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Well, yeah, no, this has been great. Yeah, maybe we'll connect again over email. I can connect you with some of the folks in New York.
That's great. And when you're in New York,
I would love to. Yes. I
what do
actually
you
want to
do? I'm
see.
just curious. If
Mhm.
you have dinner, what do you do when you sit down and have dinner with people?
Yeah, so it is. I'd like to be somewhere where it's not. pitch super quiet. So
Okay.
if it's at home, I like to have some music in the background, or I'd like to be um, I'll generally be eating pretty quickly, or just moving around the room.
Mm.
But music's good.
Is it every person, every meal, or is it?
I would say it's most. I mean, my younger kids don't bother me so much because my brain somehow doesn't assign a threat to them. But
Okay.
yeah, but yeah. I mean, it could be anybody. There's not. It's not like yeah. It could be anybody. Pretty equal. I don't feel like it's. It used to be just parents growing up, but then that's kind of all I was around. But then it kind of like expanded to pretty much pretty much anybody. So I mean, if I'm in a restaurant and and around the person at the next table if I'm noticing it, they'll annoy me as anybody else will. So
But if you're
um
sitting at a restaurant with a friend,
hmm
what do you do?
yeah, that's a good question. So one thing I do is, so if it's some if there's situations where you can't just make a scene.
Yeah,
And
yeah, you
so,
can't get up and you can't.
or
Yeah.
it's not appropriate necessarily just to say something. And so I think I just take it kind of one course, one one course at a time,
Okay.
and I
You try not
will.
to focus on the mouth area and
Yes, and
okay.
one thing, yeah. So one thing I'll definitely do is not look, because the visual.
Hmm.
I want to cut the visual triggers out. Another thing I tell people, I don't always remember this, but I try to tell myself that the meal is going to probably end in what 20 minutes. And so if I can just make it, then I can get up and relax. Another thing I can do is just go to the bathroom maybe a few times, just to kind of like calm myself down a little bit, or
So
just to
having
get
a
some kind of change
long,
of pace.
so having like a long fancy meal for a couple hours is torture for you.
It's
That would
torture.
not be
And
okay.
another thing that really gets me, and I think it's because I could get triggered, is if it takes forever to get the bill. Like I
Ah,
get I get
well, that
quite
drives me crazy too, but I don't know if it's
yeah.
miso related, but
No, it's fine.
oh.
It's yeah. I don't. I think honestly, I think it's separate. But it would be bad if, I mean, it would be exponentially bad if I was getting triggered and the bill was taking too long.
Sure, totally
Um,
right. If you're in an environment where triggers are
hmm
around and you know that, then you want to just get out of here there. That makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense.
Right.
Do you
Right.
talk about, I know, I'm curious, like, do you
Yeah. Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about what do people do, like for for your partners who don't have it, what do they do in terms of eating, knowing that that's a trigger? How should people help people with miso food triggers?
Yeah. That's complicated. Yeah. In a lot of cases, yeah. If you have a partner, I mean, they're not gonna like do things on purpose. Although there was one time when somebody came and he said he had an ex that like she would like, if she didn't want him to be around when she was maybe checking her phone or something, she would like trigger by making the tapping sound or something that she knew was
Okay.
a trigger. And so
Passive
obviously that didn't
aggressive.
last. But yeah, obviously that didn't last. But and even more sadly, there have been people who've come out and said that their mothers, when they were kids, would, or dads would, like do it on purpose because they thought that, I don't know, there is kind of a punishment. But that's a whole other level of nastiness.
Very.
But yeah, I guess with partners, in a lot of cases, people are generally supportive, and will be
But if you and I were sitting down to a
conscious.
meal,
Yeah. Hmm.
what would you need me to do? What should I be doing to help you while I'm eating my meal across from you?
Yeah, so I guess one of the things would be things like, obviously, chewing with your mouth closed. So
Right.
taking care of the basic manners. But
Right,
then
right.
another thing that personally just gets me is if I can hear, like, how sometimes you're eating, and then you hear kind of like, then sometimes, like, in your whether it's the food hasn't gone down completely the throat, but it's like you need to clear your throat. For me, that if you need to clear, if somebody needs to clear the throat, but they keep talking through it, then
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
distracting. I can't tell,
Okay.
like, I don't know if like I need to, I generally, and so it could be a case of like, drinking, quietly drinking the water just to kind of get it down. But so, that kind of, sonic texture of where you can tell that, there's, your throat's not clear, but some people just feel like they can just kind of some people just kind of keep talking through it, then I can hear that change in the voice and that kind of rattling in
Mhm.
the throat.
Interesting.
That's a big trigger for me because I mean, I think that's my parents used to do that all the time, and that's kind of where it developed for me, I believe. So if I hear that in other people, that becomes a trigger. So
Uh-huh.
I would, my preference is, to, if I'm having a meal with somebody, for them to just kind of chew and just completely swallow, so that when they speak, it's just like, just like we're speaking right now,
Interesting.
so that I can't tell that we're eating, you know.
Interesting. Good to know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We'll
Interesting.
come out and we'll
Okay.
have lunch sometime, and we can
Yes,
practice.
and you can teach me exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ideal, so nice to talk to you,
Yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah, for
thank
sure.
you for doing this. This is a real service.
Of course, of
Truly.
course.
I hope that that people are helped by this.
Thank you, Lynn. Really interesting conversation here, and I hope, I hope we can meet up at some point. If you like this episode, don't forget to leave a quick review or rating, and just hit the 5 stars wherever you listen to this podcast. You can hit me up by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com, or go to the website misophoniapodcast.com. It's usually easiest just to leave a message on Instagram at Misophonia Podcast. Support the show by visiting the Patreon at patreon.com/Misophonia Podcast. The music, as always, is by Moby. And until next week, wishing you peace and quiet.